The research vessel Stellar Horizon drifted silently through the Kuiper Belt, its sophisticated arrays collecting data about the strange gravitational anomalies that had appeared 6 months ago. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic displays, showing the increasingly bizarre readings from their sensors. "Captain Morrison, you need to see this," she called out, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "The gravitational distortions are forming a pattern I've never seen before." Captain James Morrison, a veteran of deep space exploration with weathered features and graying temples, moved to her station. Before he could respond, the ship's AI, interrupted with an urgent alert. Multiple objects detected emerging from subspace, energy signatures unlike anything in our database. The void before them shimmered like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. Massive shapes materialized, sleek, crystalline vessels that seemed to absorb the distant starlight rather than reflect it. The largest was easily 20 times the size of their research vessel. "First contact protocol," Morrison ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Dr. Chen, begin broadcasting the standard greeting package. Lieutenant Rodriguez, maintain our current position, but keep our emergency drive spooled." The crystalline ships arranged themselves in a perfect hexagonal formation. Their response came not as a transmission, but as a direct neural interface attempt, a technology humanity had theorized but never achieved. Dr. Chen's translation matrix struggled to process the alien communication. "They're calling themselves the Nexar, Captain. They're demanding to know why we're probing their quantum gateway network." Morrison's face paled. The gravitational anomalies they'd been studying weren't natural phenomena. They were watching the construction of an alien highway system, right in Earth's backyard. "Explain that we're a research vessel, that we had no knowledge of their network," Morrison commanded, but the Nexar's response cut through their transmission like a knife through butter. "Your species has demonstrated dangerous levels of advancement without proper oversight." The neural message burned into their minds. "Your ability to detect our quantum infrastructure indicates technological progression beyond acceptable parameters for unregistered sentience." The Nexar ships began powering up their weapons arrays. Crystalline structures along their hulls pulsed with energy that defied conventional physics. "They're not interested in explanations," Chen realized, her hands shaking as she read the incoming data. "They see us as a potential threat simply because we could see their technology." Morrison's military training kicked in. "All hands, battle stations. Rodriguez, plot us a micro-jump back to Earth. We need to warn." The first shot from the Nexar fleet didn't target their ship. Instead, a beam of coherent energy lanced past them, striking a point in space. Reality itself seemed to tear, creating a window through which they could see Earth's orbital defense platforms. "Impossible," Chen whispered. "They've created a spatial shortcut. They're going to bypass all our early warning systems." Morrison slammed his hand down on the ship-wide comm. "This is not a drill. Emergency protocols are now in effect. Chen, download everything we have on their tech. Rodriguez, get us out of here the moment the data transfer is complete. Someone has to warn Earth." The Stellar Horizon's drives spooled up as the Nexar fleet began their invasion, their crystalline ships sliding through the spatial tear like arrows loosed from a cosmic bow. But they didn't fire on the human vessel. They didn't consider it worth the energy expenditure. That would be their first mistake. As the research vessel fled, its databases contained precious seconds of sensor readings about Nexar technology. Data that humanity's brightest minds would soon pore over, searching for weaknesses. The Nexar had dismissed the Stellar Horizon as insignificant, just as they dismissed humanity as unworthy of existence in their ordered universe. They would learn, as so many others throughout history had learned, that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their current technological level, but in their relentless drive to adapt, improvise, and overcome. The Stellar Horizon's emergency jump drive engaged, hurling them toward Earth through conventional space. Behind them, the first shots of an interstellar war illuminated the void. Humanity's age of innocence was over, but their age of innovation was about to begin. As they raced home, Dr. Chen was already analyzing the sensor data, her mind racing with possibilities. The Nexar's quantum technology was advanced, yes, but it operated on principles that humanity had already begun to theorize. Perhaps, she thought, their greatest advantage was that the Nexar didn't expect them to understand it at all. Captain Morrison watched Earth's distant sun grow larger on their viewport. Send word to every research facility, every military installation. Tell them, he paused, his jaw set with determination. Tell them to prepare for impossible things, and tell them to work fast. The stellar horizon carried more than just warnings and sensor data. It carried humanity's best chance at survival, the proof that the Nexar's technology could be understood, and therefore could be countered. The race against time had begun, and humanity would need every ounce of their legendary ingenuity to survive what was coming. As they approached Earth's defense perimeter, the first flashes of combat were already visible in high orbit. The war had begun, but so had humanity's path to proving themselves far more dangerous than the Nexar could possibly imagine. New Athens burned. The pride of human colonization, a city-state of soaring crystal spires and floating research centers, had become a battlefield. Quantum fire rained from the sky as Nexar warships methodically dismantled humanity's greatest achievement beyond Earth. Governor Diana Maxwell stood in the Emergency Command Center, deep beneath the surface of Kepler 186f, watching her world die. The holographic display showed waves of crystalline ships advancing through the debris field of destroyed defense satellites. Status of the evacuation, she demanded, her voice hard as diamond. Colonel Wei Zong, commander of the New Athens Defense Force, consulted his neural interface. 70% of civilians are in the deep shelters. The rest are being moved through the emergency tunnels. But Governor, he hesitated, the Nexar aren't just destroying infrastructure. They're changing it. The displays shifted to show captured footage from the surface. Where Nexar weapons struck, matter itself seemed to reorganize. Buildings weren't simply destroyed. They were transformed into crystalline structures that pulsed with alien energy. They're not just invading, Dr. Marcus Rivera, head of quantum physics research, said quietly. They're converting our world to match their own physical laws, making it impossible for us to ever reclaim it. Maxwell's hands clenched into fists. New Athens had been humanity's testament to the stars, a colony built on principles of science and enlightenment. Now it would become their greatest loss, and perhaps their most important lesson. Dr. Rivera, she turned to the physicist. What have you learned? Rivera pulled up his latest analysis. Their technology operates on quantum principles we've only theorized about. They're not just manipulating matter. They're rewriting the local laws of physics. But his eyes lit up with a dangerous gleam. They're systematic, predictable. They follow patterns we can study. A violent tremor shook the command center. Above them, another defense line had fallen. We don't have time to study anything, John protested. We need to evacuate everyone we can. No, Maxwell's voice cut through the chaos. We need to do both. Colonel, continue the evacuation. Dr. Rivera, you have 1 hour to gather all the data you can. Then I want you and your team on the last transport out. Governor, Rivera started to protest, but Maxwell silenced him with a look. The data you gather here could save Earth. Every reading, every pattern you identify in their attack. It's all ammunition for the scientists back home. We lose this battle, but we make damn sure humanity wins the war. Another tremor, closer this time. The Nexar were systematically working their way down, converting every layer of the city into their crystalline architecture. In the streets above, the last civilians were being hurried into underground shelters. The Nexar's methodical advance had one weakness. They were so confident in their superiority that they followed the same attack pattern every time. It made them predictable, gave the defenders precious minutes to save lives. Dr. Rivera's team worked frantically. their quantum sensors recording every detail of the Nexer assault. Each blast that transformed their city was also revealing the fundamental principles behind the alien technology. "Governor," John called out, "we're detecting a power buildup in their fleet. Something massive." Maxwell watched as the Nexer ships arranged themselves in a perfect geometric pattern above the city. "They're going to try to convert the entire colony at once," she realized. "Rivera, tell me you have what you need." The physicist was already downloading the last of his data. "We've identified 3 major vulnerabilities in their quantum manipulation field. If Earth can develop countermeasures—" "They will," Maxwell assured him. "Humanity's greatest minds will have everything we've learned here. Now go. Get that data to Earth." The last evacuation ships were launching as the Nexer began their final attack. The entire city groaned as alien energy began rewriting its very atoms. Maxwell stood in the command center, watching the end approach. "Governor, your ship is waiting," Zhang urged. "No," Maxwell's voice was calm. "I won't abandon my city. But I'll give our people every second I can to escape." She activated the colony's experimental quantum core, a project the Nexer didn't know existed. "Colonel, get Dr. Rivera and that data to safety." "That's an order." Zhang saluted sharply, understanding in his eyes, and ran for the last shuttle. Above, the Nexer fleet's energy buildup reached its crescendo. In her final moments, Governor Maxwell smiled. The Nexer thought they were erasing humanity's greatest achievement. Instead, they were providing the key to their own eventual defeat. The quantum core detonated just as the Nexer fired their conversion beam. The resulting cascade of competing quantum fields created chaos in their carefully ordered attack. Dozens of evacuation ships slipped through the gaps in the Nexer formation, carrying with them both refugees and precious data about the enemy's weaknesses. New Athens was lost, transformed into a crystalline monument to Nexer power. But in their victory, the aliens had revealed vulnerabilities that would prove fatal to their plans of conquest. They had shown humanity exactly how their technology worked, and in doing so, they had given Earth's scientists the blueprint for fighting back. As the last human ships jumped to safety, carrying their precious cargo of survivors and scientific data, the Nexer began consolidating their hold on the colony. They never thought to question why the humans' final resistance had been so precisely calculated, never wondered why their enemies had focused so much on gathering data rather than mounting a serious defense. That oversight would cost them everything in the battles to come. Deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Dr. Sarah Chen stood before a holographic representation of salvaged Nexer technology. 6 months had passed since her escape on the stellar horizon, and every second had been devoted to understanding the enemy that threatened humanity's existence. The Nexer's quantum manipulation field isn't actually changing the laws of physics, she explained to the assembled military and scientific leadership. It's enforcing their understanding of physics onto our reality. That's why they're so methodical, so structured in their attacks. They can't conceive of physics working any other way. Admiral Helena Santos, the newly appointed head of Earth's Unified Defense Force, leaned forward. "And that's their weakness." "Exactly," Dr. Marcus Rivera chimed in from a quantum-encrypted video feed. The survivor of New Athens had lost an arm in his escape, but his mind was as sharp as ever. They've trapped themselves in a technological box. They can't imagine alternatives because they've optimized their technology too perfectly for their understanding of physics. The hologram shifted, showing data from the fall of New Athens. "Governor Maxwell's last act proved it," Chen continued. "When she detonated the quantum core, it created localized physics variations that their systems couldn't handle. They can rewrite reality, but only in one direction, toward their version of order." "So how do we use that?" General Victor Adebayo asked, his cybernetic eye scanning the data streams. Chen smiled for the first time in months. "We introduce chaos. Controlled chaos." The hologram changed again, showing a new device that combined human and salvage Nexer technology. Project Phoenix isn't about matching their quantum manipulation technology. It's about exploiting the gaps in their understanding. We're developing weapons that don't try to overcome their physics. They temporarily suspend physical laws altogether. A stunned silence fell over the room. It was Rivera who broke it. The quantum uncertainty bombs. They worked. Better than we hoped, Chen confirmed. Each detonation creates a bubble where physical laws become temporarily unpredictable. The Nexer's technology relies on enforcing their version of physics. When confronted with true quantum uncertainty, their systems try to impose order and burn themselves out in the process. Admiral Santos stood, her expression grim but determined. How soon can we begin production? We've already started, General Adebayo replied. Underground facilities on every continent. The Nexer's orbital superiority means nothing when they don't know where to look. But there's more, Chen added. Show them, Marcus. Rivera's hologram nodded and transmitted new data. We've discovered something in the New Athens data. The Nexar aren't just an alien empire. They're a species that has completely merged with their technology. Their crystalline ships aren't just vessels. They're extensions of their consciousness. Which means, Chen continued, when we disrupt their physics, we're not just fighting their technology. We're attacking the fundamental way they perceive and interact with reality. Every quantum uncertainty bomb doesn't just disable their ships. It traumatizes their entire worldview. The implications hung heavy in the room. They weren't just developing weapons anymore. They were creating something that would shake the Nexer's civilization to its core. There's a catch, Rivera warned. Using these weapons will have consequences for us too. We'll be disrupting the very physics we rely on. Each deployment will need to be precisely calculated to avoid causing permanent damage to space-time. Admiral Santos squared her shoulders. Better than letting the Nexer convert every human world into their crystalline empire. How long until we can launch a counteroffensive? 3 months, Chen replied. We need to distribute the weapons to our remaining colonies and coordinate the strikes. The first wave needs to hit them everywhere simultaneously, before they can adapt. They won't adapt, Rivera said quietly. That's their weakness. They've optimized themselves for perfect order. When confronted with fundamental uncertainty, they'll have 2 choices, retreat or shatter. General Adebayo's cybernetic eye whirred as he processed tactical simulations. We'll need a name for these weapons, something fitting for what they represent. Chaos seeds, Chen suggested, because from this destruction, a new understanding of physics will grow, one that embraces uncertainty instead of trying to eliminate it. Admiral Santos nodded slowly. Project Phoenix enters its final phase then. Humanity won't just survive this war, we'll revolutionize our understanding of the universe in the process. As the leaders began coordinating humanity's counterattack, Chen returned to her lab. On her main screen, simulations showed the effects of chaos seeds on Nexer crystal technology. The alien material didn't just fail, it transformed, becoming something neither human nor Nexer, but entirely new. We're not just fighting for survival anymore, she murmured to herself. We're fighting for the right to determine how we understand reality itself. In labs and bunkers across Earth and the surviving colonies, humanity prepared for their greatest gambit. The Nexar had brought order. Humanity would respond with chaos, and in doing so, rewrite the rules of the universe itself. Operation Wildcard began in the dark of space, in the eerie silence around the transformed ruins of New Athens. Admiral Santos watched from the bridge of the ESS Prometheus as the combined fleet of Earth's surviving forces gathered in the shadow of a gas giant. Every ship carried humanity's new secret weapon, the Chaos Seeds. All ships report ready, her tactical officer announced. Chaos Seed deployment systems are primed. Santos took a deep breath. Everything hinged on this moment. Send the signal to all forces. Execute Phase 1. Across human space, coordinated attacks began simultaneously. But these weren't conventional assaults. They were precise surgical strikes designed to shatter the Nexer's understanding of reality itself. In orbit around New Athens, the crystalline Nexar ships detected the human fleet too late. The first chaos seeds detonated in a spectacular display that defied description. Areas of space where physics itself became uncertain, where cause and effect became suggestions rather than laws. The effect on the Nexar was immediate and devastating. Their crystalline ships, extensions of their consciousness, encountered something their ordered minds couldn't process. True randomness. Systems designed to impose order on reality faced regions where order itself was meaningless. Dr. Chen, monitoring from her station on the Prometheus, watched the sensor readings with fierce intensity. The quantum uncertainty field is holding. Their attempts to impose their physics are failing. They're actually making it worse. The Nexar ships closest to the detonations began to transform. Their perfect crystalline structures became fluid, shifting through impossible configurations as they tried to adapt to the changing laws of physics. Some simply shattered, their rigid order unable to cope with fundamental uncertainty. But the true horror for the Nexar came from within. Their consciousness, so intricately linked with their technology, experienced something they had never evolved to handle, a reality that refused to follow their rules. Second wave. Launch. Santos commanded. More chaos seeds deployed, creating a web of uncertainty that trapped the Nexar fleet. Their perfectly coordinated movements became erratic as they lost their ability to predict how physics would behave from one moment to the next. On a quantum-encrypted channel, reports flooded in from other battlefronts. The simultaneous attacks had caught the Nexar completely off guard. Their rigid, hierarchical command structure was breaking down as different fleet elements encountered varying levels of quantum uncertainty. Admiral, Chen called out urgently, "We're detecting massive energy fluctuations from the surface of New Athens. The quantum disruption is affecting their converted structures." The transformed city below began to shift and change. The Nexar's carefully imposed order was unraveling as chaos seeds introduced uncertainty into their perfectly ordered systems. Crystalline spires twisted into new shapes, neither human nor Nexar in design. "They're sending a transmission," communications reported. System-wide broadcast. The message that came through was fragmented, distorted. The Nexar struggling to communicate through the quantum chaos. This, impossible. Reality cannot, must not. Order must prevail. "Send our response," Santos ordered. The same message to all Nexar forces. Chen's voice rang clear across the quantum frequencies. "Reality is not yours to control. Uncertainty is not your enemy. It's the foundation of existence itself. Retreat, or face the dissolution of everything you believe to be true." The Nexar response came in the form of a massive energy buildup. Their remaining ships were gathering for one final attempt to impose their version of physics on the battle space. "They're going to try to override the quantum uncertainty field," Chen warned. "If they succeed." "They won't," Santos declared. "All ships, execute Phase 3. Maximum deployment." The final wave of chaos seeds detonated in a carefully calculated pattern. The competing fields of uncertainty created a cascading effect that the Nexar couldn't have predicted, because it operated outside the bounds of prediction itself. The result was beyond even humanity's calculations. Where order and chaos met, new forms of physics emerged. The space around New Athens became a swirling maelstrom of possibility, where multiple versions of reality existed simultaneously. The Nexar fleet, faced with the complete breakdown of their understanding of the universe, finally broke. Ships fled in disarray, their perfect formation shattered. Some vanished into their quantum gates, while others simply ceased to exist as their rigid structure succumbed to uncertainty. As the quantum storm began to settle, New Athens below had been transformed again, but not back to its human original, nor to the Nexar's crystalline conversion. Instead, something entirely new had emerged. Structures that seemed to flicker between states of existence, architecture that embraced uncertainty as a feature rather than a flaw. "Send word to Earth," Santos ordered quietly. "Operation Wildcard is a success. The Nexar defense is broken." She turned to Chen. What have we created here? Chen stared at the readings from the transformed city below. Something unprecedented. We didn't just defeat the Nexer. We opened a door to an entirely new understanding of physics, one that neither humanity nor the Nexer could have achieved alone. The battle for New Athens was over, but the implications of humanity's victory would echo across the galaxy. They had proven that true strength lay not in imposing order, but in adapting to chaos. As the fleet secured their position, scientists were already documenting the strange new phenomena created by the clash between order and uncertainty. Humanity had not just survived, they had evolved, forcing the universe itself to acknowledge that there was more than one way to exist within it. The age of rigid physics was over. The age of quantum possibility had begun. 1 year after Operation Wildcard, Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the transformed ruins of New Athens, watching reality itself shimmer around her. The protective field of her quantum stabilizer kept her safe from the waves of uncertainty that rippled through the city, but she could still feel the pull of possibility in the air. The Nexer embassy ship is approaching, Araya announced through her neural link. The AI had evolved significantly since their first encounter with the alien fleet, adapting to process multiple quantum states simultaneously. Above, a single crystalline vessel descended through the atmosphere. Unlike the rigid geometric shapes of their warships, this one flowed like liquid glass, its form constantly adapting to the quantum fluctuations around it. The Nexer had learned, however painfully, to embrace uncertainty. Admiral Santos and General Adebayo waited beside her as the ship landed. The diplomatic meeting that followed would determine the future relationship between humanity and the species they had fought to a standstill. The Nexer ambassador emerged, a being of living crystal that shifted between forms, its consciousness now capable of existing in multiple quantum states. We have come to understand. It communicated directly into their minds that our pursuit of perfect order was fundamentally flawed. Understanding was all we ever wanted, Chen replied. Your attack forced us to evolve, to see reality in new ways. Perhaps it's time both our species learned from each other. The ambassador's crystalline form rippled with acknowledgement. The quantum chaos you introduced to our systems has transformed us. Some of our kind resist, retreating to the old ways. But others see the potential in uncertainty. Admiral Santos stepped forward. And that's why you're here. Not just for peace talks, but for collaboration. Yes, the ambassador's form settled into a more humanoid shape. Your chaos seeds didn't just defeat us. They showed us a truth we have forgotten. The universe is not meant to be controlled, only understood. And understanding comes in many forms. They walked through the transformed city, where human scientists worked alongside reformed Nexer to study the new physics their conflict had created. Buildings that existed in multiple states simultaneously housed research projects that would have been impossible just a year ago. We've detected other quantum civilizations approaching human space, General Adebayo reported. The war changed more than just our corner of the galaxy. The ripples are spreading. They're curious, the Nexer ambassador explained. For eons, advanced species sought to impose order on quantum chaos. Humanity is the first to weaponize uncertainty itself, and in doing so, proved that evolution requires embracing chaos rather than fighting it. Chen stopped at a viewport overlooking a particularly unstable section of the city. Through the quantum fluctuations, she could see multiple versions of New Athens existing simultaneously. The human original, the Nexer conversion, and countless new possibilities. We're not just rebuilding, she realized. We're creating something entirely new. A civilization that exists at the intersection of order and chaos. The price of victory, Santos mused, wasn't just in lives lost or cities transformed. It was in accepting that we had to change our fundamental understanding of existence. The Nexer ambassador's form shifted again. Your species calls this place New Athens. In our histories, Athens was a crucible of philosophy and learning. Perhaps it is fitting that this new Athens has become a crucible for a new understanding of reality itself. General Adebayo's cybernetic eye whirred as it processed multiple quantum states. The defense applications alone are revolutionary. No enemy can attack what they can't predict. But that's not the real breakthrough, Chen countered. The real breakthrough is in learning to exist in harmony with uncertainty. The chaos seeds didn't just win us the war. They opened the door to the next stage of evolution for both our species. Above them, the quantum fluctuations in the sky created aurora-like patterns as different versions of reality interacted. Ships from a dozen alien civilizations hung in orbit, drawn by the unprecedented collaboration between humans and Nexar. "We came to impose order," the ambassador communicated. "You taught us to dance with chaos. Together, perhaps we can teach others to do both." As night fell over New Athens, the city glowed with possibilities. In laboratories and research centers, humans and Nexar worked side by side, exploring the boundaries between certainty and randomness. The weapon that had ended the war had become a tool for advancement, transforming enemies into partners in the greatest scientific revolution in history. Dr. Chen made her final notes of the day, watching as equations evolved on her quantum display, each solution spawning new questions. The war had cost humanity dearly, but it had given them something precious in return: the knowledge that their greatest strength lay not in imposing their will on the universe, but in adapting to its infinite possibilities. In the transformed streets below, human children played with young Nexar, their minds open to possibilities that their parents' generations could never have imagined. They were the first of a new kind of civilization, one that didn't just tolerate uncertainty, but thrived on it. The age of rigid physics was over. The age of infinite possibility had begun. And humanity, as always, was ready to lead the way into the unknown.